What's going on? I hope you guys are having a wonderful day. My name is Dr. Boyce Watkins, and welcome to drboycetv.com, the home for intelligent Black people. Today, we are going to have a great conversation about a really important topic, a topic called Black love. Black love is like a pink unicorn, something that people act like it don't exist, but we know it does exist. It's everywhere, and it's just not being promoted. It's being hidden under rocks and being replaced by ratchetry and chaos and everything else that you put on TV. But this is the real TV. These are your real Black leaders. And so today, to join me in this discussion, I would like to introduce all of our guests, and I hope you will greet them as you come in the door and give them a B1, hashtag B1, to let them know that how much you love them. So I'll start ladies first. First, I have Miss Constance Carter. Constance is the CEO and founder of Catalyst Real Estate, correct? Did I get that? Say that right? And which is the largest Black real estate firm in California. She's also, you see her regularly on FlyNewbie and QueenTV.com. And she's just a super smart woman. The other lovely lady in the building is my wife, Dr. Alicia Watkins. And I'm proud to say she's a Watkins. And so she is a licensed therapist, a full professor of social work. How you doing today, babe?
Pretty good. How are you all doing?
Doing well.
All right. And also we will have what is it? They say age before beauty. So I think I'm gonna guess Dr. Cleo Monago he's the elder between the two great brothers we have today. So Dr. Cleo Monago, you know what? I don't even know exactly what title. I didn't get titles because I'm so unprofessional. What title? How do people normally introduce you? I just say this is my homeboy Cleo. He's a smart guy. He's got that Morgan Freeman voice, so everybody listens to everything he has to say, and he's smart. Well, what would you say? What title do people usually use to represent you with?
Well, it depends. My background is behavioral health and cultural analyst, and I also run the Black Men's Exchange, where I'm the chief advisor, and I work with the Amasi Center for Black Wellness and Culture, where I'm the curator, and I do a lot of work around teaching Black people to unlearn anti-Blackness and come out of the white supremacy trauma trends.
All right. Well, that's a nice title. I like that a lot. And also Dr. Adrian Carter. And Dr. Carter, again, I know that you are the author of the book. What is? Don't tell me. Because we have your book in the house. What's the name of it? Tell me the name of it again, because I see the book all the time. You got the title?
Black Fragility.
Fragility. Okay, I guess we could ask you. That's the easy way out. I was trying to see if I can remember it off the top of the dome. But yeah, Dr. Carter, good to see you, man. All right, so let's let me ask everybody in the crowd, how many of y'all feel that in some cases, particularly in media and other places, that Black relationships are severely misrepresented? Give me a yes in the chat if you feel that they could do a better job of portraying what Black love looks like. That they tend to sort of replace that with drama and trauma and everything in between. Give me a yes or no if you feel that way. So I'm going to start with you, Constance. So again, ladies first. So I'll start with you, Miss Carter. So what do you think? I mean, you know, why are we even having this conversation? Like, why do you think that this is necessary to even have a conversation about Black love, Black relationships, and everything else?
I think it's extremely important because I think, just like you said in the media, we do not see a fair representation of us. What we see are all things negative. We see all things one-sided. You know, if you look at reality shows, they all seem to go down that same rabbit hole. And we don't have a fair depiction of what we do. We just like everybody else. We love, we fight, but they only show the negative. And these conversations are necessary because, you know, when you go into other countries or people from the outside looking in, they think we're just one way. And it's unfortunate that the way that they depict us, but that's why it's so important to have these conversations and have our own channels and our own representation so that we can be able to speak our own truths. It's just not out there. And we can't expect Hollywood or any white media to do it for us. We have to do it ourselves.
Okay, I like that. So that's a good segue to Dr. Monago. So Constance mentioned white media and white media portraying sometimes in a way that just doesn't seem accurate. And I've heard you, Dr. Cleo, mention scenarios where you use a term that I've actually borrowed this a lot. We talk about Black folks definitely in media re-traumatizing each other. Maybe because it's not just a matter of other people disliking us. Sometimes we dislike ourselves, and I dislike you because you look like me and I don't like me, so I don't like you. Can you speak to that in terms of some of these dysfunctions that can come out of that unhealthy environment that seems to be created by everyone?
Well, I want to mention, at the risk of sounding like a conspiracy theorist, maybe I'll be the first one to sound like that, but it's not simply a lack of representation. There's a straight up attack on Black love, the impulse to love Black people, to care about Black people, the impulse to see Black people as options in terms of who we're going to love and spend our life with. There's a literal attack on that. And I have to say, before it gets too late, that nothing would work in terms of the attacks on us. We taught our children how to have a critical analysis and told them the truth about this corrupt, imbalanced culture that we live in, and lovingly prepare them for what they're going to run into. Because the re-traumatization is a side effect of the impulse that we don't matter. And that even gang violence, and I can go on with things that I'm sure you all know about, this is all a subset of the residual effect of all of the messaging that says being Black is bad. And I do a lot of work in Baltimore, and you may know or you may not know that there are murders literally every weekend. And the people who are trying to intervene are more rhetorical than they are strategic. They mean well, but hollering about, and I don't mean to sound disrespectful, but screaming about how bad it is, it's not a strategy. Unlearning anti-Blackness and deconstructing the elements that keep leading to that outcome, which is not difficult to do because there's so much information and so much data in that way, we can deconstruct that and get people to learn how to decode these messages so they can deflect them before they internalize them. And I know that works because we have a project called Watu Wajua, which stands for Children of the Sun in Swahili, which is a children's critical analysis development project. And we teach them how to look at the media and recognize that when they're not there, it's not coincidence. There's a corruption going on that's anti-Black that they need to know about so they don't fall for the okie doke.
Interesting. Okay, so Dr. Alicia, Dr. Manago said something that really triggered my thought on something that you speak on regularly. Around the house, she's always. I watch what my wife reads and listens to and stuff like that, and she's always studying things on the subconscious mind. And it sounds to me like Dr. Manago is referencing this idea. It seems, among many things, that they are programming us to think a certain way about ourselves, that Black men are being programmed to see women a certain way, women are programmed to see men a certain way, men see men a certain way. You mentioned Baltimore, Cleo, where all the killings happening. Well, I'm gonna tell you, a lot of us, we travel a lot of different cities. I'm telling you, Baltimore has the same problem as Philly, which has the same problem as Chicago, same problem as New York, same problem as LA. It's everywhere now. Houston, anywhere you go. So talk to us, Dr. Watkins, about the subconscious and how maybe perhaps a lack of awareness about what's being placed into our subconscious mind is affecting how we end up seeing ourselves.
Yeah, I mean, I absolutely agree with everything that Constance said and Dr. Cleo, for sure, that there is there is an attack and there isn't a deliberate attack, but the best counterattack is to just do one thing, is to love the children in our homes, because we are not going to have an issue with children going out on the streets killing each other if they have love in their hearts. If they feel like they matter in their own home, if they come home from school and they have someone that they can turn to when they're having a rough day, where they can drop everything and say, oh my goodness, you had a rough day. Tell me what your day was like. How did that make you feel? Not just to solve the problem for them, but to get young children at a small age to become comfortable talking about how they feel, what they're thinking, and their behavior, and being able to connect the three of those things together. Then you care not what they do when they leave your house, because they're going to have so much love in their heart because somebody cared about them so much that's going to be the counter. That's you as a parent programming your child, because your child is in your house, and then everything else will kind of like be null and void.
Well, let me ask a question that links to that then. So Dr. Adrian Carter, you wrote a book called Black Fragility, and there's Dr. Carter there doing his best Umar Johnson impersonation. And,
I thought I was doing a Boyce Watkins impersonation.
But I'll tell you, you are a sharp brother, and this is a great concept. So tell us about Black Fragility. And I was surprised, when knowing what I've seen, you're super sharp. Your ideas are solid, and I enjoy hearing you speak. I was surprised that was your title, and I was very curious. If you could, tell us what do you mean by Black Fragility? Why did you choose that as the title of your book?
Yeah, I wanted it to be something that was jarring to jolt people, and it has definitely done that. People struggle with the title, but I think it is a necessary concept and conversation that we have to have. And that Black Fragility is saying that when Black people are confronted with certain truths in order to hold us accountable for the role we play in our own demise, the fragility comes in when they push back on that. And a lot of times what the behavior is of Black people is they are looking to acquire a level of proximity to whiteness, which alienates themselves from their Blackness, and they become disruptive or do not take accountability for their disruptive behavior and how they impact their own family nucleus and the Black community at large. So when you're dealing with a Black person who's not willing to confront that issue, they are practicing, in my opinion, Black fragility. And that's what the book is about. It's about having a very direct conversation about things that we need to address in our own community. Because what happens is white supremacy is white supremacy. And while that is there, we can't put all the blame on just white supremacy. We have to, as Black people, take responsibility and be accountable for what we can control. And the premise of the book is if you can control what you can, then it begins to give other doors are able to open up, allow you to control more. But you have to be able to start with what you can control.
Wow. Everybody who just came in, we're having a conversation about the state of Black love. I could put a cynical title like, is Black love dead? But then I'd probably be an asshole for saying that. But then again, though, this is a question that people ask because I hear people say things all the time that are all over the range in terms of their perceptions. Do us a favor, please. If you could, please hit the thumbs up button, thumbs up, share, subscribe. If you're on social media, if you could take 1 second, please share this to your friends because y'all know some Black folks who need to hear this conversation. I ain't worried about what other people are doing. I'm thinking about what we're doing because I believe that's going to control our destiny. So, all right. So Constance Carter, CEO of Catalyst Real Estate, badass Black woman. You host your show and I see you on Fly Nubian Queen TV, and you cover a lot of topics. I was really surprised because you're really good at real estate. Y'all don't know also Constance is like a hell of a rapper. Like she really like raps and she did that. Like right? Remember Alicia when we heard Constance rap?
We
were like, this is really good. This is really good. Yeah. So I was really kind of surprised when you were doing so many relationship topics, so many relationship shows. What inspires you to talk about relationship issues so regularly when you're doing things on Fly Nubian Queen and other platforms? Yeah,
it was just fun, and there are things that I talk about with my girlfriends, and things that I talk about with my guy friends, and I had been married for a very, very long time. We were together since I was 15, and I'm recently divorced. And just at this point, these are conversations that I just talk about with my friends, and just trying to figure out life and trying to figure out, what's next. And what's funny is, in being really transparent is I'm in a place I'm so used to having control and being able to kind of navigate and figure things out and, go through successes and failures and, be able to get back up and, know kind of what the next step is. In this phase in my life and this iteration of my life, I have no clue. So it's really just a lot of learning, a lot of trying to figure things out because I have no idea. I am green as all get out. So I have no idea. So I'm just trying to figure things out. So asking people questions, engaging with different people. There are things that I know for sure, but there are things that I'm still trying to figure out. But I do know that Black love does exist. I do know that there are great Black men and great Black women out there. And I do, I believe in all of that stuff. I believe that, a relationship is whatever you decide to make it. If you want rainbows and cupcakes and butterflies and all that stuff for the rest of your life, if you choose, you just have to choose to do it. And I do know that. But it's just really, for me, it's just what is out there. I don't know. I'm 15. I was with him since I was 15. So I don't really know a whole lot. I'm trying to figure everything out. Yeah.
That must be scary. Like that. What's that like when you
super scary.
I'm 15. That's wow. Because
Well,
I mean, you gotta be at least 25 years old now, right? So that's
yeah, I'm only 25. So it's well, but
me too. Oh my God, that's so crazy.
I got into with him when I was 15, got married at 22, had a baby at 23, bought a house at 23, then had 4 kids total, and just have spent, our life, raising kids, raising a family, building a career, being super focused, kind of knowing, what was next, and then, for that to change and then not knowing what's next, it was just I was out in the ocean. And I'm still, just trying to figure things out and, just raising, now I'm single mom, trying to raise my kids, trying to be a career, push my career forward and do all of those things. So it's really a totally different place for me. But I'm up for the challenge, as with everything else, I'm up for the challenge, but it's totally foreign land for sure.
Yeah, you are up for the challenge. Y'all don't know Constance is a badass. Really, she really is an absolute badass. So, okay, so Dr. Monago, I just because in my mind, I just each one of you makes a statement. It makes me think about something that I know all of you understand really well. And you talk about, I've heard you also speak about the way we kind of show up for each other. Right? So if you think about Constance going out and forming relationships, friendships, or and beyond, one of the things I've noticed is that it's one thing if we're working on ourselves, but then you're dealing with a world full of crazy ass, trifling ass people sometimes too, right? And you've talked about how we show up for each other in terms of just I mean, I could be doing all the self-help that I can do, but if you're not engaged in any of that, then that's an issue. What would you say, to that? I mean, I almost think that we don't respect our therapists enough. I think that we all need a lot of therapy. I mean, what do you think, Dr. Cleo?
Boys, you just said a lot. Before I get going, I want to say that I am really intrigued with Dr. Carter's Black fragility concept, and I hope to talk about that more. But I don't think that Black people, and I forgot some of the words you used, but so I'm paraphrasing, are simply crazy, etc. As you've heard me say before, we're in a trance. We're in a generational trance going into maybe the 6th or 7th generation of being an unhealed people who have confused trauma for culture, or who have confused trauma-born behavior as Black culture. And, the official language of the United States is English. The official attitude is anti-Black. We all speak English and we all speak anti-Black. And a lot of what we interpret as simply crazy is misdirected rage. The impact of generations of unresolved trauma and anti-Blackness that has become decorated. That is, we can make an art form out of anything. I mean, if you listen to rap music up close, a lot of it is very anti-Black, but it has a good beat. And what I mean by that is that we make self-hate look like a portrait. So that's one of the reasons why I'm interested in Mr. Carter's or Dr. Carter's perspective, because he said something like along the lines of we have to take responsibility. Now, I agree with that ultimately, but you cannot take responsibility for what you can't fathom. You can't take responsibility for what you don't understand or don't imagine. I mean, the sister Dr. Watkins talked about the subconscious. The Black subconscious is loaded with unresolved issues. And the residue of that unresolved conglomerate of stuff that has added up over years is this behavior that we're calling crazy. Something else that she said too that I think is important to look at. She mentioned that if you love in your home, you kind of equip your children to go into the society and deal with it. I agree with that. Love should be the baseline, but we must teach our children the truth about the corrupted society that they live in. For example, and I've mentioned this before, probably in your presence, Royce. I traveled across the country speaking at mental health conferences, and right after Dylan Roof shot 12 people and murdered 9. I was in St. Paul and I talked to about 500 mental health professionals, and they had their children with them. And I asked them, had they talked to their children about that situation and have they checked in with them? Have they asked them how they're doing? And I asked the children in the audience, had you heard about Dylan Roof? And over half of them said, we knew who Dylan Roof was. And some of the boys started crying. And the reason some of the boys started crying is because some of the things I said made them realize that they were sitting on trauma as children, that they had boys that they had never got any permission from their parents or an invitation from their parents to talk about.
Wow.
They become grown people who we call crazy, who are people who are acting out unresolved trauma, who are acting out. Have you ever watched the ID channel and you talk to these brothers after they murder somebody when they're going through interrogation, and almost all the time they break into tears because they're acting out something that they don't even understand and know, because they're in the trauma trance. They're responding to the unresolved unconscious. They're acting out, and it's a culture of acting out where everybody's killing each other. They don't know what's going on, and they really regret what they did, but they were acting out what was in their presence, unresolved and undecoded. Just like when a Black child watches television, which a lot of us do, they're watching an anti-Black smorgasbord. And if they're not told, baby, that's an anti-Black, or whatever terminology you want to use, baby, the reason that we can't find a Black love story right now on TV is because it's corrupt and bad. It's not you that's the problem, baby. You're wonderful. You came from the greatest things on the planet. It's that that's not corrupt. You need to understand that so you can decipher the difference. A lot of our children who become adults, former children, can't decipher things, and they're acting out. And I think we need to look at them as people who are unresolved instead of simply crazy and ratchet. I'm going to tell you right now, a lot of them want to change, but they don't have the language, the tools, or the support for transformation.
Okay, well, I like that a lot. So let me, and by the way, everybody, I'm speaking with Constance Carter, Dr. Cleo Monago, Dr. Adrian Carter, and Dr. Alicia Watkins, and we're talking about Black love, and among other things, we're digging into other issues, Black trauma, the subconscious mind, etc. If you could, please hit the thumbs up, share, subscribe button if you haven't done it yet, and also share this video because we need to have intelligent conversations in our community so that we can all grow. So I hope that you all will respect the very smart people we have here today and share this with as many people as you can. So Dr. Alicia, I'm gonna tell you, as Dr. Monago was talking, I was thinking about, first of all, my wife is interesting. She one thing that she talks about a lot is that there's a big absence of Black love stories on TV. Has anybody else noticed that there's not usually healthy Black relationships portrayed on TV, which really pisses her off. And I remember you, babe, I remember you were telling me when you were reading she was reading a big old book about the subconscious mind. And I said, okay, so what are the things that affect the subconscious mind the most? You immediately said, you said repetition, trauma, and symbols, and repetition, trauma, and symbols. And I remember that. I stick that in my brain. I use acronyms. The acronym that I use is really terrible shit. Right. And so when I think about that, it helps me remember that, because I started paying attention to how often in media you see this repetition, these repetitive, very toxic messages about what it means to be Black. The symbolism is crazy. White supremacy is built on symbolism. If you read Dr. Claude Anderson's books, how they literally codified and institutionalized white supremacy and using every tool that they had, including symbols like Jesus and the white Jesus all the way down. That was a big deal. And of course, the trauma piece. I mean, my gosh, it's everywhere. So can you speak to that in terms of what we should really understand, just maybe starting with that the really terrible shit, trauma, repetition, and symbolism, and sort of help us understand how we can maybe begin that process of climbing out of that hole. And then you can speak to whatever else you'd like to address on that issue. Dr. Watkins? Oh, wait, you're muted. I muted you. Sorry.
Am I muted? Okay, I'm not muted. Okay.
I'm sorry.
You muted me? Was that noisy? Yeah, well, the repetition has to do with the continuous stereotypical images that we see in media, and it's repeated over and over again. The angry Black woman, the feminized man. I mean, we've talked about that ad nauseum, about the types of images that we see about ourselves and the type of dysfunction that we see on television. I'm watching Married at First Sight. I'm watching all of these TV shows. Sometimes I watch the Housewives series, and it is nothing but just like all of this repetitious symbolism of just all of the terrible things about us that's being shown on television and given lots of accolades to. So that's the repetition, that's the symbolism. And the trauma has to do with just the ongoing examples of how Black people have been mistreated, the blatant racism, the overt racism. There's a lot of covert racism that happens, but the overt racism where it has to be seen that some poor young kid is being gunned down in the streets, or there's a noose hanging somewhere. So it's always these symbols that you see that reminds you of how messed up you are and how terrible situation that we are in and how we need to be saved by somebody. And so that's the subconscious piece. And it's interesting that you asked me about that, Voice. I thought you would ask me something about one of our recent conversations about epigenetics. And I was thinking about that as Dr. Cleo was speaking too. Can I speak on epigenetics? Do you remember our conversation on that? I don't want to talk too much.
Refresh us. Bring us all in on the conversation.
Well, well, it's a very fascinating concept. The epigenetics adds to the concept of epigenetic adds to what Dr. Cleo and Dr. Adrian Carter talked about specifically, is about how it talks about generational trauma and how your ancestors pass things down to you as a gift to you. These are ancestral gifts that are given to you. And part of it is the gift of survival. And so what your grandmother and grandparents and even your parents experience in terms of trauma, when they have children, it can change your brain, your physiological self, your physiological brain, so that you're better equipped to deal with the trauma that they experienced. So trauma is on a genetic level, but also on a physiological level, passed down from generation to generation. How do we know this? So if you don't mind, I'd like to tell you about that study. They did a study with one generation of rats. And so, or mice, one generation of mice in a laboratory setting. And so they exposed the mice to, I think it was a rose, to the smell of a rose, okay, certain smell. And so as they smelled the cherry blossom, that's what it is. As the rats and the mice smelled the cherry blossom, the researchers would give them little shocks, would shock them. So that it's called what Pavlov and Skinner and all those behavioral people, what they call this is conditioning. So they conditioned one generation of rats to respond to the smell of cherry blossom. And those rats had children. So they mated those rats, and those rats had children. They removed the rats. So the first generation had no contact with the second generation. Okay. But the second generation, when they introduced the smell of cherry blossoms, those rats behaved as if they had been shocked. Although they were never shocked themselves, it was something that their parents experienced. And they continued to test this. The second generation of rats would have children, third generation, fourth generation, and all of them would react a certain way to the smell of cherry blossoms, although they did not have contact with anyone else in the other generation, but it was something ancestral passed down to them. And as a form of that trauma that's passed down to them and their reaction to that. Now, the wonderful thing about this study, with what I read, was that that's kind of unethical. Let's see if we can, what Skinner would call like extinguish. Let's see if we can extinguish this sort of pass down. And so what they did was they took that generation, the last generation, and they associated the smell of cherry blossoms with something positive. They gave them food. They rubbed their back. They gave them something really positive in that one generation. And lo and behold, would you know that when that generation had children, it was totally extinguished. There was no longer this neurological response to that level of trauma. So what that tells us is that, yes, as Black people in particular, we do have trauma that we are passed down that comes straight from slavery, a lot of it, and even sometimes before. And the thing, we don't even have to go back to slavery. It's just the trauma of being Black in this country today and back in the 60s when our parents were growing up. But if with therapy and dealing with some of those things and extinguishing some of the trauma responses and healing that you can, in your generation, get help and change that, extinguish that for the next generation after you. So I thought it was a very hopeful, and I'm sorry for taking so long, Boyce, with my answer, but I think that's something that we need to get out, particularly when we have conversations about trauma.
Okay. All right. So let me move on to Dr. Carter. That's a great answer, and I appreciate you explaining that, because it's important. You know, when I think about, and we were talking about trauma and the subconscious and just stereotypes, and y'all know I might have things every now and then to say about hip hop, and it almost seems like with hip hop music, I remember when Kanye West first came out and he was rapping about things like, you know, dropping out of college, and they were like, well, that's not real hip hop music. Like it almost seemed that they were like, okay, if you haven't been traumatized, if you're not ready to just, you know, if you haven't been in scenarios where you've had to kill somebody or done something really dysfunctional, then you're not interesting as an artist. So it almost seems like our trauma is it's almost like fighting against slavery, because the challenge with slavery wasn't just the moral challenge of it, convincing people that slavery was wrong. They knew slavery was wrong for hundreds of years. It was when it became an economic entity. It was when people were making millions and billions of dollars from slavery that it became tough to confront it, because now you're messing with somebody's money. So it seems that when you look at hip hop and you look at the stereotypes, you know, that exist within hip hop music and stuff like that, and how it's become this billion-dollar industry, right? You know, people, I guarantee you, if I had some rapper on this platform right now talking about this very same topic or any topic that rivaled what you all are talking about, the people will pay more attention to the rapper than they will pay attention to you. And you are the experts. You are smart people, successful people. So it seems to me that that's one of the challenges for our community, Dr. Carter, in terms of, and you can take the conversation any direction you want to go, because I know you've got a lot to say about some of the things that were said as well. But it seems like that's where the uphill battle begins, that it's difficult to get the attention from people who have been led to believe that being traumatized is good for you financially. It's good. That's how you get lit. That's how you become important, right? You know, you make a song like Constance is a great rapper, but you know, she probably can't, you know, if she ain't doing enough twerking, or if she's a guy, she'd have to have some teardrops and tattoos to say, look how many Black people I shot last year, right? That's what's going to get you, you know, and we see the evidence. 200 rappers were killed in the last year alone. That's 4 a week, by the way, 4 per week. That's one every 2 or 3 days. I mean, come on now. And nobody thinks that's abnormal. Dr. Carter, please, I'm getting triggered. Y'all all specialists, so y'all probably see me getting triggered right now. So I'm going to shut up and hand the mic to you, brother. Go ahead.
Well, you know, I just want to pick up from where Dr. Alicia was and then roll into the question you're asking. That's exactly where the book Black Fragility comes in. Is because one, I think it's a multi-pronged solution that we need as a Black community. But what this particular book is doing, it is jolting, right? It's intended to give a jolt to the Black community. Because if I can get someone to understand that, wait a minute, I am making decisions that are based in this trauma space, and I need to do something to stop it. If I'm not willing to address it, then it speaks to my fragility. But if I'm willing to address it, then it speaks to the subtitle, which is addressing the unaccountability of Black men and women in the 21st century to heal, encourage, love, and protect Blackness. So the idea of overcoming the fragility is to address the fragility so that we can begin to help one another. And the hope there is that we can stop the generational, structural, cultural, and direct violence that we engage in. Right. So that's what the book is doing. And what I did in the book was I wrote 5 letters to men and 5 letters to women. Dear Black men, dear Black women, and spoke to very specific issues that, hey, think about the outcome of what this is and what's going on. And maybe if you address this issue, and take responsibility for what you can. So I agree, Dr. Cleo. There's a lot of trauma. There's a lot of, as my colleague says, who's a social scientist as well, she says, whiteness is in the subconscious of the subconscious. So even when Black people are trying to operate out of a space that is of Blackness, there is still a layer of subconscious of whiteness, even in their subconscious, as they're trying to be conscious. So it's a lot of work to do and a lot of unpacking. And one of the things I do talk about in the book is the impact of rap music and how we have bought into an institution of music. When we go back, think about the impact of music, right? Which is the same thing Dr. Watkins, Alicia was talking about. The repetition and the symbolism, right? And there was another word that you mentioned. But when you listen to music, the refrain, that chorus, it's repetition, the symbolism of what success looks like. And that idea of success is all linked to the proximity to whiteness. We think of whiteness, we think of success. You think of the colorism issue that we have in our community, right, is a proximity to whiteness issue. So all of those things are I'm addressing in the book, because one way or another, I'm hoping to be able to knock on someone's door and say, hey, let me get your attention. And if you can change this, then maybe you can begin to change the epigenetics inside of your own family line.
Wow. Well, you know what? I hope everybody listening can appreciate the value of this conversation. Today, I'm speaking with Constance Carter, Dr. Cleo Monago, Dr. Alicia Watkins, and Dr. Adrian Carter. We're talking about Black love in a broader context: love for yourself, love for your community, love for each other, and so I hope that everyone can appreciate that, and thank the guests in the chat for giving their time. And also, what I'm gonna do is mention a couple things. One, by the way, those of you that are here, you know that we're into Black wealth and things like that is also shifting the culture. So if you want to take a look at the Black wealth calendar for this year, feel free to go to boycewatkins.com and take a look. The calendars, you can get them for the rest of this year. So that's on boycewatkins.com. And also what I'm going to do is I'd like to pass the mic around the table one more time to each of the guests for their closing thoughts, maybe in a couple minutes. Give us something where we can write it down. We take notes. Everybody in here, I hope you're going to take notes. And also give me a yes in the chat if you're committed today to breaking the generational curse. I think intentionality is extremely important. That awareness of knowing what the curse is, knowing that it's there, and then identifying it and just killing it like a cancer. So if you are committed to having the courage to breaking some sort of generational curse, just some area in your life where you say, I'm gonna do it better than they did, or what happened to me, it ain't gonna happen to my kids, or how they did it is not how I'm gonna do it. Give me a yes in the chat if you're ready to do that today. I want this to be an action item on all of our lists. So I'm taking notes because all these Black people are smart, and so I'm gonna start with Constance Carter. What will be your closing thoughts, ma'am? And by the way, if any of y'all have wrote a book or got a platform you want people to know about, I'm putting your Instagram up. Constance, I don't have your IG, but I'm gonna write it up here on the screen when you speak. But I want everybody to know where you guys are, because everybody here, I hope you will follow these individuals. These people are gonna make you better, right? They're not just entertain you. They are entertaining, but they're also gonna make you better, and it's not gonna poison your mind. So Constance Carter, what say you? Oh, she is muted. Let me unmute. There we go.
Instagram, I am Constance Carter. And I'm looking at the comments and I'm loving how everybody is committing to changing their lives for the better. I love how everybody's saying yes, yes, yes. And that's great. The beautiful thing about Black love is Black love encompasses everything that we are within our community. It's very necessary. So we talk about, I talk about, my values align with Dr. Boyce's. I start listening to Dr. Boyce several years ago when I bought his stock program for my kids, and my son now, is trading stock and making a bunch of money. But our core values align when we talk about Black wealth and what we need to do for our community. But Black love is at the core. Is at the center of Black wealth, or is at the center of our community. Without having love, we don't have anything else. But I love what Dr. Alicia talked about, what you do with your children, because, well, number one, as long as you have breath in your body, you can find love. You can be intentional about what you want to be or what you want to do with whomever you want to do with your partner, and just build something great, even if you're beyond child rearing age. But what when she talked about, because I have 4 kids, And those are the single most important things in my life. What I do and what I pour into my children are the single most important thing. And I love how she talked about how when you love them, it changes. And so just being intentional about starting there, even if, you feel like it's past you, that I see a lot of people in the comments saying Black love is dead. I can't, ain't nothing out there for me. I'm done with Black love. I'm done with love or whatever. Okay, that's fine. You wash your hands of love, even though I believe that that everybody can have love. I do believe that what you pour into the next generation is going to be the game changer. So I think that's what we really need to focus on. I mean, focus on ourselves, but also focus on what we put into our children. That is going to be paramount to really building our community and really building our generations and creating legacy. And that's what it's about for me.
All right. I love that. So Dr. Manago, what are your parting thoughts, brother?
I want to reiterate that Black people are in a trauma trance, that many of us are not fully present. We are distracted. Our unconsciouses are full and bursting over, and our unconscious mind of unresolved issues is interrupting our common sense and our capacity to have sensible impulse control and love ourselves in our own image. The Black Men's Exchange did an event called Resurrecting the Black Man some months ago. And we talked about stereotypes about Black men. I'm sure you've heard the stereotype that there are more Black men in jail than in prison. And we asked the audience among the questions, which was true and which was false. Is it true that there are more Black men in jail than in college? It's a real question. And of course, almost everybody said there are more Black men in jail, and that's not true. I guess at this point, most of you know that there are more Black men in college than are in prison. But every time somebody had a negative perspective of Black men, and it was a true or false question, everybody believed it was true that Black men are bad. And these were Black men. And there was some Black men in the audience who were so mad at Black men that they said, all the stuff you guys are saying about Black men is positive is not true. And the reason I start off with that is because I travel a lot. And I see Black men in stores, in airports, walk down the street, loving their children, caring their children, embracing their children, being loving fathers to their children all the time. But the media doesn't show that. The media does not show Black men loving their children, but it shows implications of Black men being problematic, dysfunctional, violent, out of control, and our children and former children buy into that. I think one of the important things we have to do to actually change things is break the trauma trance. I think the work of Dr. Carter with the Black Fragility book is part of that work in terms of breaking the trauma trance, separating facts from fiction, where I do have a perspective that people often challenge is that a lot of what we do is not, quote unquote, our fault. We have to take responsibility for it, but you cannot take responsibility for something, as I said before, that you can't fathom, that you don't realize what's going on, that you can't imagine because your imagination has been interrupted and swollen with whiteness and anti-Blackness. I'm going to close my rant by saying that my name is Cleo Manago. I can be found as Cleo Manago everywhere, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter. They closed my account a month ago on Twitter because I was doing stuff that they thought was too radical. But I opened up a new account and we'll see how long that lasts. But one thing I really appreciate was what Miss Dr. Watkins said, the female Dr. Watkins, when she talked about that this is temporary and unnecessary, that we can recover, and that there's strategies that can be put in place where we can heal, get in our right minds, love ourselves in our own image, and live productive Black affirming lives. We need to hear that and know that, but we need to know how we do it, as opposed to it being some type of poetic suggestion. We need the steps. And one of the things we have to do is come out of the anti-Black white supremacy trauma trance, because we're in that trance, I'm telling you.
Well, I love that a lot. I like that a lot. And so get out of the trauma trance. Let's find a reason to love each other. And we all know that the media is full of fake news. And congratulations on getting your Twitter account canceled, Dr. Manago. That means you're saying something worth hearing. Because I don't know if y'all know, I just as a side note, our daughter has a friend who for some reason this 14-year-old kid is like, I want to follow you on Instagram. I was like, okay. Well, she hands me her phone. She says, find your Instagram. And I typed my Instagram in the phone and it did not come up. she could not search for me on Instagram. Remember that literally happened. So and I said, oh shoot, I interviewed Rizza Islam. Now I'm on the list. I am on the list. But you know what? I don't regret it at all. And I'm sorry if telling the truth, if there's a price for telling the truth, then that's fine. I will pay that price gladly. So Dr. Watkins, what would be your parting thoughts? What do you have to share with us that's going to make us better people that we can write down and walk away with?
I wish I had something better to say. It's just, just listening to what happened with Dr. Cleo. I mean, that's trauma, and I just think about Black people sometimes, and I think about all that we've been through in this country, just the trauma since being in slavery, the way we were treated and beaten and hung and tarred and feathered and murdered. That's trauma, how brutal we were treated in slavery, the helplessness of it all. I mean, there was nothing you can do about it. I mean, that's trauma, having to endure it. The only thing you can do is try to pray to God about it to get you out of it, because you feel that you have no peace, no love, no happiness at all on earth. And so, what do you do? And I just think that is just something that we need to kind of wrap our brain. I'm still having a hard time that 400 years, we've been going through this as a people, migrating from the South to the North to come to the North and be treated just as bad as you were in the South. That's traumatic. The educational system, all these systems, that is definitely traumatic. And it just reminds me, gosh, I mean, it's traumatic just being born with dark color, your skin being dark. And I think about what Dr. Adrian Carter talked about colorism. It reminds me of a story that my mom told me. She was a school teacher way back in the 1980s. And she said that she went into her classroom and there was a little girl in her classroom just crying, just tears, just in tears, crying. And my mom pulled her out in the hallway and she said, what's going on? Why are you crying? And she told my mom, every day I come to school and every day that I'm around people in this classroom that don't look like me, I'm reminded every day of how Black I am. And there's nothing I can do about my skin color, because she felt she was penalized just for being dark. That's traumatic. I mean, the helplessness of it all. You can't control how you're born. You can't control what color you are. Being very dark when you're born, even that's traumatic. And my mom had to explain to her, yes, but you're beautiful. Being dark was traumatic for her. And I suspect it was the case for other people as well. And that's something that we have just so much to try to help us as a people. And I just find that these situations make it very difficult. And it's remarkable, given our history. It's remarkable that we can love it all. It's just fantastic that we are able to sit here today and at the end of 2021 and still say we love each other. And and I love you, boys. You know how I feel about you. And I love all y'all on this panel.
Yes.
Everybody in the chat.
Everybody in the chat say I love y'all. Everybody say I love y'all in the chat. Let's have some Black love in the room.
And this is
say I love y'all.
It just tells us how amazing we are as a people. The fact that we can sit here and say that, considering all of the challenges we have. I mean, Boyce and I, we talked about, I'm gonna say one more thing and I'll be done because I got somewhere to be. But Boyce and I, we sit and talk about how traumatic it was getting a PhD at a white institution. That was traumatic, was it not, Boyce? The trauma of it all, of working at an all-white institution, teaching. We are like forever, you're forever scarred. Like we'll sit and talk about, God, I remember that one time I did my defense of such and such. We have long drawn out stories about how we were traumatized in these PhD programs. You can't even escape higher education. And we're smart people. So there is no escape. Getting your education doesn't escape. Where you live, you can't escape it. I don't know. I'm just done. I'm done. It's been a long day, and
she's getting triggered like me. I still Dr. Alicia's daddy was a great man. And Dr. Francis Taylor, and I never forgot when you told me that story about how he went to his dissertation defense with a weapon in his pocket.
Yeah, he had a knife in his pocket.
Yeah, I'm not gonna tell too much of his business, but I thought that was funny. I said, okay, I understand.
He was traumatized.
I understand. So okay, so I tell you what, okay, so trauma is on the trauma's on the menu, and I think that's something to address. And so Dr. Carter, lead us out of here, brother. Author of the book. Oh, see you later, baby. I'll see you upstairs.
All right.
Dr. Carter, author of the book Black Fragility. You're a smart Black man. So tell me something, or tell us something if you can, that we can walk away with. And also, we definitely would like to know how to get in touch with you and all that good stuff.
Yeah. First of all, can you all hear me well?
Yes.
We sure can.
Okay. So for some reason, my internet went out. So I don't know, between Twitter and IG accounts not popping up, I don't know if they came from my internet service over here.
Well, you out here helping Black people, so it could literally be the CIA. But please continue.
You get a little dicey. But with the book, my hope is that people are jolted to be able to make a difference and to have some reflective and introspective moments. One of the things that I talk about, which I think is very important, is that we have to do something. And Dr. Cleo is right. A lot of us are in this static space of being traumatized and not knowing what some of the issues are. And I'm hoping that the book highlights what some of those issues are. And you could go to my website, adriancarterspeaks.com, or go to Amazon directly and type in the title of the book. And thank you again, Dr. Boyce Watkins, for writing the foreword to the book. One of the things I talk about in the book, which I think is important, is one, heal people can heal people, right? If we can believe that hurt people, I believe that heal people can heal people. So there's some people out here, such as ourselves on this platform, who are doing the work. So I'm hopeful about that. And number two, do something, right? Like, I think it's important for all of us to take up the mantle in some aspect and do something positive that can have some residual effect for yourself and for your family. One of the things I do when we talk about being solution oriented, on an annual basis, I run what's called the Empower Men Conference. So it's the word empowerment, but take off the T. It's the Empower Men Conference focuses on teaching men and predominantly Black men how to be better fathers, how to address conflict within themselves, how to develop their families, how to participate in activism within the community, and how to show up as a better version of yourself. And what I'm trying to help men do is to redefine their identity and to move it away from this idea that I need to demonstrate a level of violence in order to demonstrate my masculinity, and inform them that there are other ways that you can show up in the world that demonstrates empathy, that demonstrates better communication skills, because a lot of the conflict that people have is tied into their communication skills and how they see themselves and what they value. And if they are valuing things that are closer, that brings them closer to that proximity to whiteness, then we have more of a problem. But if I can get them to begin to see that they themselves are empowered, that they're not necessarily defined by these outward things, but what are your intrinsic values that you bring to the table? And we can start from there as a building block and then look out into our families and into our community. I think we're better off for it. And the conference has been running for 3 years now. 2022 will be the 4th installment of it. And I've been fortunate to be able to help over 500 men who come through the conference and who I've been able to have those kind of conversations with. So to me, it's ongoing work. So that everyone out there, do something. Like, get on your workhorse and put in some kind of work to do something that helps you, your family, and the community. And I think we'll all be better for it.
All right. Well, I love this a lot. And what I'll say is, first of all, this has been an enlightening conversation. I've learned so much, and I don't know about y'all, but I love when we get a chance to really be ourselves and be who we're meant to be. And I personally believe that the people on this panel represent the very best of what we are as Black people. And I want to mention something. There was a moment at the All Black National Convention. Every day was pretty amazing. I literally haven't seen one negative review yet from the convention, but there was one night where there was a group performing a Victory Boyd's group, their family called Infinity Song. and they were performing a song called "I Got Mad Love for You." And while they were singing, I guess Jay Morrison got so excited he went up to the front and started dancing. The next thing you know, Queen of Fool got up. Were any of y'all there that night when that happened? When that went down?
Yeah.
And Queen of Fool gets up, and then Alicia gets up. Next thing you know, there's like hundreds of people standing up, and it's like everybody saying, "I got mad love for you." And what you saw was an interesting energy kind of take over the space where everybody just felt love for each other. Like you would have thought they gave everybody ecstasy, because people were hugging, and strangers were like, "I love you, brother. I love you, sister." Like it was so wonderful. And I said, and everybody I talked to that was there that night said it was magical. It was really magical. And I came with a formula for that. I said, it's like when you take black love and you mix it with black excellence, you get black magic. Like you get something that is just, phenomenal. That just is where you don't know where it came from. It's almost like it comes from God. Right. And that really reminds us of just that power of that melanin, that we just really have something from God that ain't nobody else got. We know it. We see it everywhere. Right. And when we're at our best. Right. So that's the first thought I wanted to share. The second thought I wanted to ask everybody is I'm going to read the definition of trauma for you. Simple terms. The definition, if you look it up, it says a deeply distressing or disturbing experience. A deeply distressing or disturbing experience. So I'm going to ask everybody to chat. Give me a yes or no. How many of you feel like you've ever experienced trauma? How many of you have ever experienced a deeply distressing or disturbing experience, maybe in childhood or adulthood or whatever the case may be? Give me a yes or no in the chat if you fit the description of a black person's experienced trauma. Now, why do I ask you that question? Well, I want to read to you from the National Institutes of Health, the effects of traumatic stress. This is just a summary. I'll be brief, but I want you to just understand what was done to you and what this did to your system, what this did to your brain. It says here, traumatic stressors such as early trauma can lead to post-traumatic stress disorder, PTSD, just like the soldiers have this when they go to Vietnam, when they went to Vietnam or whatever, etc., which affects about 8% of Americans at some time in their lives. I think the percentage is higher for us because it's normal for us to grow up in a hood where people were getting shot. People were getting sent away to prison. Y'all saw that video. I don't know if anybody saw the video of the little girl who saw her daddy, who'd been locked away, and she just starts bawling like a little baby. Yeah. Right. And I knew that. I felt that because I remember when my older brother / uncle went to prison. I remember just crying, and I couldn't even, I would go to school. I wasn't even paying attention because I was writing him letters in jail when I was 12 years old. And I would just be writing letter after letter after letter. And I didn't know how weird that was. I'm 12 years old doing this. Right. And so we take this for granted. Like we don't appreciate or understand our own pain. Right. We think that I'm just tough. I can just deal with it. No, that messes with you. So it says that this trauma is linked, according to the National Institutes of Health, to things like depression, substance abuse, disassociation, personality disorders, and health problems. For many trauma victims, PTSD can be a lifelong problem. And also it affects you neurologically, etc. The list goes on and on and on. So what I want to encourage everybody to consider and understand is that you've been through something that's pretty terrible. Most of you have, and I would encourage you to become educated on it, aware of it, and you got to confront that. You got to confront it. If you don't, it'll be like a prison that you're just in for the rest of your life. And I don't want you to be in jail. So I want everybody to go out here and free yourself from all that trauma and drama. Break generational curses. After you free yourself, go do a Harriet Tubman, a psychological Harriet Tubman. Free your family. Right, break generational curses, and we're gonna put this shit behind us. So I want to say thank you very much to all of our guests. Constance Carter, CEO and founder of Catalyst Real Estate. Good to see you, sister. And Dr. Cleo Monago, my homeboy. Good to see you too again, brother. Thank you for doing this. And Dr. Adrian Carter, very good to see you as well. And God bless everybody. Please have a good night, and we will see y'all soon. Black love. Everybody type black love in the chat. See you later. Peace.